Good morning and welcome to Quilt Chat. Well, we're in full force again.
We are.
You're back from vacation.
And I should say aloha.
Yes, you should. And did you bring back your 1,000 pictures?
I do have about 1,000 pictures, but I did bring back 4 of them to share because, you know, quilts can get inspiration from just about anywhere, and there is more inspiration in Hawaii than you can imagine. So here are just a couple of the ones that I had taken, just a couple of beach scenes. Sunset, wouldn't that make a nice quilt? I think that could be interpreted pretty well.
You know who could help you with that? Kathy McNeil has a really great
Kathy McNeil does have a class on that. And then there are a couple more.
Flowers.
I took a picture of this hibiscus because it had the most beautiful coloration of a flower that I've ever seen. It went from a bluish lavender in through the yellows and peaches, and just, it was absolutely fantastic. I loved it.
And it has water drops on it too.
It does.
So that would actually be a challenge if you were doing that in a quilt.
True.
And maybe using Melinda Bula's method for that.
Right.
Yeah, that's how she does that all
How
out of
nice that would be
applique.
to have a quilt that could be of the caliber of Melinda Bula's. She does have an iQuilt class, so maybe I can learn.
Maybe you can learn. Well,
So it looks like you had a great time.
I did have a great time, and I got back just in time to see that this issue, the January issue of AQ, is now out. So you should be getting it any day now if you haven't gotten it in your mailbox yet.
You know what my favorite thing about that issue is?
What?
96 quilts featured.
Yes.
Yes.
Holy cow.
2 shows.
It
Two
is.
shows because it includes
It is
all
eye
of
candy
the
galore.
fall Paducah quilts, plus
Yes.
the Des Moines quilts.
Plus the Des Moines.
And we have some really, really nice patterns going on too. Oh, well, the patterns are always nice, but I think we can show some of the screenshots of the pages of the patterns. Heat wave, that'll get you in the mood for a new, warmer year ahead. You know, so your January won't be so cold.
and Danny Amazonas's pieces.
Right.
Beautiful work.
We've talked a lot about Danny in the past few months, and there's a nice article about him. Heading Home by Lauren Palmer is a good modern quilt that you will enjoy making. It's very easy. And Geese Galore is by Carla Klopp. She is new to us as a pattern author, but she has done an absolutely beautiful quilt that I think you'll enjoy.
And she's one of our vendors too.
She is.
Yes.
She is.
At the shows.
So I'm really, and another thing is that if you have quilters on your Christmas list, you might be interested in our fabulous finds because we have some products that you'll be interested in seeing.
Yes, that's a great idea. And
Well-
you know, American Quilter would be a great Christmas gift too.
It would.
A subscription
Yes.
for someone that's not familiar.
Absolutely.
That
Go to
would be so
AmericanQuilter.com and
So
you can.
neat. I have a couple other Christmas ideas.
Uh-oh.
I know.
I knew you would.
Right. So the New Year's coming. So it's calendar time, of course. And so here we have the AQS 2018 wall calendar. And these are just some little old piddly quilts we found here and there. No, they're all award-winning. Incredible quilts. And then this is the engagement calendar. And this one's really cool because it gives you a quilt every week. You know, these beautiful quilts and little places to make notes.
I couldn't live without mine. That's how I keep
Right?
track of what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely
And Bonnie,
love
you
it.
do a lot of things. You're always going and
Well, yes, and it gets full
lots of
too.
meetings, and I bet it
Meetings
does.
and webinars and, you know, traveling. Yeah.
Right.
But it's a good way to keep track of
Sure.
where you've been.
It's good, and it's good
and,
to know
and where you're going.
what day it is.
Sometimes.
on
That's
vacation
what we
you
wanna know.
on vacation you lose track. I actually didn't know the date a few times, but that's okay, right?
Well, one of the things we wanted to talk about today is there has been some chatter on Facebook about whether or not you should quilt on top of your applique pieces. So we thought we would just kind of talk about some of the pros and cons of doing that, of when you could or should, or maybe it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
And so how do you feel about it, Ann?
I found an article this morning, a blog post by my friend Lori Kennedy of the Inbox Jaunt, who has, she is also a contributor to American Quilter magazine, and she does a lot of motif quilting and teaches how to make motifs. Well, that doesn't necessarily sound like it would relate to applique, but she has taken an applique quilt that she's working on, and she talks about how she outlines the edges of the applique and then continues with rows of applique around, or rows of stitching around that applique, and then moves on into her motifs with, maybe it doesn't make sense the way that I'm explaining it. Go to theinboxjaunt.com
Well,
if
and
you'd
what
like
she
to
does
see
is
how she does.
she maybe adds some more leaves or something in the
Yes,
quilting
so she
surrounding
would
the
she would be
piece.
surrounding a flower, and then she would take off and do, you know, one of her motif leaves, or, you know, a matching kind of flower out in the white space. So it looks really, really nice the way that she's taken it beyond just going around the outside edge of the applique. And then she goes back later and does some highlighting on the say flowers and leaves, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, I brought 2 quilts today, and both of these are for my collection. The one behind us is an anonymous quilt. I bought it at an auction, and there's no label on it. We need to remember to put those on so we know and can give credit. But you'll see on this quilt, it has some petals that are pretty good sized, and I think it just adds a little more definition if you just do either a 1/4 of an inch around the outside edge, or maybe some lines like it would have a petal would have in it.
Right.
And the same thing with leaves, where you have that vein that runs down the middle. And that one doesn't have it, and it looks perfectly okay without it. Sometimes I think when you wash a quilt that doesn't have any quilting on the applique itself, you kind of end up with this kind of wrinkled mass of fabric after it's been laundered.
Right.
And the one here on the table is one of my prized possessions. It's by Anita Shackelford, and it has her beautiful applique and her beautiful hand quilting on it.
The hand stitching on this quilt is so beautiful. It is immaculate and tiny.
I don't know. I've not measured
so
it, but it's probably 15, 16
Yes.
stitches to the inch.
I would say so.
But you can see that she's done several things. Here in the center of this flower, she's actually quilted petals like a flower has. And then we did a 1/4 of an inch around the outside edge and a 1/4 of an inch around the outside edge. She brought it up the stem and then did a petal shape in that part of it, and a vein down the center of the leaf. And then, of course, she's done it in the ditch all the way around all these pieces.
I think in the applique quilt, it's really important to be consistent with your scale. So if on the rest of the quilt, you're quilting within every 2 inches, and your appliques are 6 inches, and you don't have quilting there, that's going to be a big puff.
It looks like a bubble.
Right.
Yes.
And
so,
the washing can really mess it up after the fact, because your stitched places are going to stay fairly stable, but your the backing and the batting of your piece are possibly going to shrink more than your top piece, and then you have this lumpy,
and especially if
bumpy,
you've layered
nasty looking thing.
and not cut out backs and things like that, then you can really end up with some interesting tension problems, because some pieces go biased, some people, you know, the different warp and weft of them will mess them up.
One of the reasons that I think it's important is if you look at the old quilts, old applique quilts, sometimes they're actually missing pieces, because if the stitching comes loose around the outside edge and that's all that's holding it, over time you may actually lose those pieces.
And those can fray so easily.
And if you quilted,
if you've not
and if you quilted another line somewhere on that piece, then you've actually protected that quilt, and hopefully it'll last longer because of that. And I think that's what we're all about.
Right.
Yes. We want those quilts to last.
That's right. All right, now Betsy, I know you have been really busy with some stuff on the blog.
We've been having so much fun. So this time of year is always one of my favorites. It's the Christmas countdown. And so we're counting down to Christmas each day, and each day we give you a different little 4-inch block to do. And we have a Facebook group, and this is one of the ladies from our Facebook group, and she has done just a fabulous job. Isn't that
and because that's
gorgeous?
tiny.
Yes.
We know how tiny that actually is. Note the little scissors, right?
It's like 4 inches, right?
Beautiful job. Yes, the blocks are 4 inches finished. And so we want you all to come and join us. And we have the link in our description to join the Facebook group. And so come and join us. And even if you're not stitching along, you'll enjoy all the beautiful blocks because the ladies are all doing different colorways.
Oh, fun.
And have different construction ideas. They've been fantastic. It's so cool.
I
They
see
are
we
really
have some
pretty.
people out there joining us today.
Yes.
Carmen is in Spain. She's a long way from
Wow.
here. It's probably evening there now, right? And Madeline, Joanne, and Ellen, thanks for joining us today.
Hi. Another thing we've got going on in the blog is December ends our creative organizer for your craft projects. And so we've done this for your quilting, crafting, whatever you're working on. We've created a planner, and I'll flip through a few of the pages so that you can see. We have different things for, like this one's for your fabric stash, so you can keep little samples. Each month we featured a new thing, and we have regular planning pages, help you organize your UFOs, do your quilt designs, any kind of drafting you want to do, fun little notes on pretty little pages. And so we have a year's worth of fun activities for you to do and help you keep your studio nice and organized.
Wow.
Right?
If only it were that easy.
Well, you can at least plan to be organized.
Documenting is good. Yes,
I guess first you
documenting
have
is
to
always
organize it before you can do this, right?
No,
No, I think that maybe it would be it'd be possible to use this as a starting point, wouldn't it?
And so it's a free download that you can find at aqsblog.com. Yes, and we have all the whole year available now.
Okay. All right. Well, so we are. Kimberly Einmo's out there joining us now.
Hi, Kimberly.
Oh, she loves today's topic. We're so surprised, Kimberly. Do you quilt?
Yes,
Oh my
and you know
gosh.
what? She does a lot of piecing. And
She
so
does.
next week when you join us, we're going to talk about some tips for accuracy in your piecing.
Oh, that's
Yes.
good.
Yes.
And I believe we had a show open this week, didn't we?
We did, actually. If you're an AQS member, you should have already gotten the link to go register for the Lancaster show. And I understand that some of the classes are filling up pretty quickly. So you want to make sure that you go register and take a look at all the classes.
It's so fun to see the courses that are offered. I love
Isn't
to
that
look
cool?
through and think, I wish I could take this or that class.
One of the things that we're doing a little bit different, we've been offering some long arm classes for the past several years, and we've done it where you had to share a sewing machine. This time we scheduled one of the classes so there will only be 12 students, and each person gets their own sewing machine.
That's fantastic.
So if
Personal attention.
I know, and Betsy was telling me this morning that sometimes a long
It can
arm
take a
sits
while.
for months before somebody's brave enough to start to do some quilting on
Yeah.
it. So if you're one of those people, go take a look at that class in Lancaster because it will fill up quickly because there will only be 12 students.
That's fantastic.
Fun.
Yeah.
All right, well that's it for today. We hope you'll join us next week right here again for Quilt Chat.
Bye-bye.